Hey, what's up? This is Ricky, CyberSec People, and welcome to the May 2023 Cybersecurity Jobs Review. So each and every month, we collect data, job advert data around the cybersecurity space, and then break that data down into the actual domains and security. So we have a good understanding of the sort of overall trend of the industry, but also the underlying trends of specific domains from security engineering, operations, GRC, pen testing, and plenty more. So here are the highlights from May 23. Really happy to see this. So we actually saw a 20% increase from the end of April to the end of May, which is great because we actually saw around 19-20% decrease going from March to April. So the May report was actually really important because was it the start of a continued negative trend, or are we going back up, or at least it's definitely indicating the right direction. Outside of that, when we look at May 22 versus May 23, we're actually nearly a 10% increase in job advert numbers, which is really healthy for the industry. Again, security engineering beat GRC for top spot. That's 7 months in a row now. So I think we can see that's definitely more than just a trend. Outside of that, GRC, unfortunately, GRC governance, risk management, compliance is actually down about 50% since May 22. So a huge drop from its highs back from a year ago. SecOps, second month in a row where it's pretty much performing around where GRC is. It did pip GRC last month to number 2 spot. Grad roles, which is always an interesting thing. Unfortunately, the lowest number I've seen since I've been tracking this data since April 22. New South Wales, big decline, around 20% in job adverts from the previous month. And then we saw declines in other areas. And pen testing was one of the few areas where we actually saw the numbers go up. And a quick shout out to Northern Territory. 5 roles, it might not sound a lot, but when other months are literally 0 or 1, 5 is a good number to see. So hopefully we will see more roles in the space, particularly in Northern Territory. So here are the numbers since we've been tracking them on a monthly basis since 2021. So as we can see, the numbers where we're at towards right now, near enough all-time highs. So you see headlines out there of bad news, of layoffs and potential recessions, and it's a really strange time. Job advert numbers are a really interesting thing, I think, to measure or track, because essentially it tells you who's hiring and who's doing what activity in the market, which is why, again, this month here was important to say, tell us where we were going next. So I think to go back up again is a nice indication. And then this is May's breakdown itself. So security engineering taking top spot, nearly or around 30% of jobs advertised were specifically in security engineering. So for those that are not maybe familiar, security engineering is a vague term. It does include the generic job titles of security engineers. It includes things like application security, cloud security, network security, product security, and more. But essentially, those sort of builder type roles in security are definitely getting more and more in demand. We see security operations here just in number 2 spot, GRC number 3. So GRC historically, up until 7 months ago, was always number 1 and around 22-24% of the market when it came to jobs. One thing you don't see, I believe this one here would be pen testing. So it'd be under 4% roles in security advertised as pen testing. And I thought what would be helpful would be an observation of the breakdown of last month versus this month. So as we can see here, the engineering market share took up an extra sort of 2%. Very steady in SecOps, and GRC actually going up. Other than that, not a lot of change from a sort of percentage perspective. And the leadership roles, they're definitely good to see. And whenever we see them going up, it's definitely a good sign for the industry, because it means a number of them will be brand new roles, and the knock-on effect will be new roles created off the back of that in terms of new individual contributors and new teams being built. And here's the stats in terms of where the roles are from a geographical perspective in Australia. So that's really interesting. Victoria and New South Wales sort of near neck and neck. I've not really seen those numbers before, and I think that's down to the big decline in New South Wales. So Victoria sort of more steady than going up, but it's just highlighting the fact that pretty significant drop in New South Wales. Always interesting to see ACT because, again, from a population perspective, it's not one of the biggest states or territories, but when it comes to numbers of headcount in IT and cybersecurity, it definitely punches above its weight. And then I've added a couple new charts. So this one essentially is correlating and comparing security engineering, GRC, and security operations, the three biggest, most in-demand areas in cybersecurity. And this is us tracking them since April last year. So we've got over 12 months of data here to sort of look at and see the trends within those specific industries. And as we can see, GRC was always up the top, and then we see that change last year. And then again, sort of security operations ups and downs, but essentially sort of overall quite steady going up. And engineering itself, by far the most in demand type of skill set, which is really interesting. And then we compare some other areas in security. So identity, which we definitely saw a big spike last year. So I think we have the big breaches, particularly in Australia, to thank for that, where we did see, very interestingly, identity and then a knock-on effect of leadership roles, new roles being created in security leadership, because essentially security is much bigger focus these days. And from an identity perspective, there's a few, let's just say, holes to fix. So big drop over the last couple of months, but even still, the numbers in identity have been growing very nicely over the last, well, I guess, 8-9 months. Pen testing sort of in this bracket where we're sort of near the top of it now, but pen testing is always sort of, I think, up and down. But I think we'll see an increase at the end of this month as well, because there's always a push when it comes to end of financial year pen testing, get it done, which means companies need more heads. And then leadership, as we can see here, the numbers have been consistent. So this is the white line here. We definitely saw an increase after these breaches happened last year. So in my opinion, this is where, from a board perspective, more conversations, more funding discussions, and then the actions of those roles being created has happened, and this keeps going up. So long may that continue. And then a couple other slides is breaking down security operations for the month of May. So the title of sort of more SOC analyst type roles, very much large. We have been seeing vulnerability management in particular growing over these last, I'd say, sort of 6 and 12 months. SOC engineers we know are massively in demand, and particularly when it comes to certain types of platforms. They're harder to hire than others, but essentially the sort of SOC engineers is definitely a good knock-on effect of a lot of companies building out SOCs, a lot of MSSPs building out their environments for their customers and connecting those. So a lot of engineers are needed. And then when we look at security engineering, I spoke about it being sort of quite a broad area, a lot of different skill sets there. So again, lots of different types of engineers. By far, the biggest job title is security engineer still, but we do see some companies defining those roles as a very specific DevSecOps engineer or OT engineer. And if I'm honest, this is probably the area where we have to do the most work of actually breaking down those job adverts, because it may say security engineer, but the skills point out it's application security or cloud security, or for a lot of internal roles, you get more of a generalist security engineer that's just essentially they may have a focus in one area, but they're going to be working on lots of different internal initiatives and projects. So that is the wrap up for the month. I'll just jump onto the headlines to finish with. So overall, the industry is moving in the right direction, even though we saw declines in a number of areas, which is interesting to see. And again, security engineering taking out top spot. If you have any questions, any feedback at all, reach out. Great day. Take care.